You could say I was well connected at the Tudor court. Being raised and educated alongside Arthur and Henry, you couldn't get much closer. So, how did I end up in so privileged a position? Well, it was as a result of a debt of honour to my father, Sir William Brandon, Henry VII's standard bearer at the Battle of Bosworth Field, and where he was killed. I never knew him, for I was a babe in arms at the time. Orphaned in 1494 when my mother Elizabeth Bruin died, and aged just 10, the grateful King Henry took me in. Being close in age to Arthur, heir to the throne, we became playmates and were educated together, something of great benefit to me as I got older. As his younger brother Henry grew up, we too became great friends. He was a toddler when I arrived in the nursery, so he really couldn't remember a time when I wasn't part of his life. When Arthur died, things changed for my 11-year-old friend. 7 years his senior, I played my part in helping guide and shape the young prince. We were solid friends, and I, one of his favourites, was never far from his side when he became king. Henry liked to reward loyalty, and so I was granted a succession of offices in the royal household, including Master of the Horse in 1513. The year I also became Viscount Lisle, though I later lost this title. The following year, I was thrilled when Henry created me Duke of Suffolk. Less so when it emerged it was to pave the way for a diplomatic marriage he favoured for me. I distinguished myself in the 1513 French campaign, where I attracted the attention of Margaret of Savoy of the Netherlands. She apparently viewed me as a second king. It later emerged that it was to her Henry had hoped to marry me. I did rather block my copybook, however, in 1514. Unbeknown to my good friend Henry, his sister Mary and I had developed a romantic attachment. Nonetheless, I duly participated in jousts to celebrate her marriage to King Louis XII of France. Shrewdly, she had only agreed to that political match on the basis that Henry promised her she'd be free to wed a suitor of her choice if, as was expected, the old man didn't last long. Sure enough, Louis lasted just 82 days of wedded bliss. It was perhaps naive of Henry to dispatch me to France to negotiate Mary's return. Yes, he was favourable towards Mary and I, yet I was under strict instructions not to propose to her during my mission. Oh, it was a blissful reunion, though I made it clear to her that I'd promised Henry we'd wait. Mary Tudor had other ideas. She gave me the choice: marry me now or never. Now, gentlemen, what was I to do? Risk being parted from my head or my love? So, Mary and I wed in secret. Well, perhaps not that secret, seeing as guest of honour was the new French King Francois. But on our return, all hell broke loose. You see, marrying a royal princess without the king's consent was technically treason. We were saved by my close friend Thomas Wolseley speaking on my behalf. Of course, there was also the small matter that Henry loved his sister dearly and saw how happy she was. Nonetheless, we thought it prudent to retire from the spotlight of court just for a year or so. All things considered, it was a result: a crippling fine, £24,000, versus a one-way ticket to Tower Hill. What say you? All was forgiven eventually, and our marriage was celebrated in the presence of my best pal and now brother-in-law, Henry. Mary and I were very happy, and it was a fruitful union. Our son, named for the king, was born within a year. The following year, our daughter Frances came along. She would grow up to be the mother of the ill-fated 9-day queen, Lady Jane Grey. Then Eleanor in 1519, followed by our second boy 4 years later, who we also named for the king, having lost our first son. Back in favour, Mary and I accompanied Henry to Calais on the infamous 1520 Tudor booze cruise, popularly known as the Field of the Cloth of Gold. There then followed a relatively quiet decade at court until the King's Great Matter. Anne Boleyn really knew how to stir things up.